So welcome so much to our panel today. We'll be discussing the topic of what does an AI PM do? A shifting and evolving topic as we all kind of learn and feel this out. I'm so excited to have the panelists joining me today. I'll quickly introduce each of them, and then we're going to go through actually and ask you guys just to say a couple words about yourself and also how you became an AI PM. Whether your path was from the technical side or whether it was from PM, and how did you first get involved with AI in your career? So first off, we have Dylan Selberg. He joins us from HubSpot AI. We have Kumaresh Patabhiram. Patabhiraman. Sorry, Kumaresh. And he joins us from LinkedIn, and also I I knew I'd mess this up. Eileen Gan from Zoom AI product lead. I'm Polly Allen, and I'm a course instructor at Reforge, as well as my own company, AI Career Boost, where I help people transition into AI product careers. And I'm also an ex-principal PM technical at Alexa AI, where I launched the first generative answers on Alexa back in 2020. So to kick us off, just want to give you a quick outline before we get started. We're going to do the introductions like we discussed. We're going to spend a lot of time today on the core competencies of an AI PM. Throughout the software development lifecycle, what an AI PM does day to day can vary drastically. And so we're going to kind of talk through at each stage how you've seen those different skills play out. We'll also talk about what it takes to transition to AI PM roles. And then finally, we'll end up with our predictions for the future of AI PMs. For those joining, we do want to collect your Q&A. That's in the lower part of your screen. We've got a jam-packed session today, so I'm not sure we'll have time for Q&A, but if you do post your questions there, the Reforge team will do our best to summarize the most popular questions, get back on those. You can also have general chatter in the Discord channel, so do be sure to join that as well. Awesome. So first we have Eileen. Eileen, would you please tell us a little bit about your career journey and how you got into AI in 1 to 2 minutes?
Absolutely. Thank you, Polly. And special brownie points to you for pronouncing my name perfectly. So how did I get into AI? The short answer is that I made an internal transfer at Zoom. The slightly longer answer is that by then I had over a decade of PM experience. I spent 2 years on the meetings team at Zoom. And then if you think back to early 2023, I was actually on maternity leave with my second kid. And by the time I came back, there had been reorgs, leadership changes, a whole lot of things going on. AI was also, bursting and changing. So at that point, Zoom wanted to put new focus and energy behind its AI efforts and was assembling a new team. And I was asked if I wanted to join. So the little girl in me wants to say I was in the right place at the right time, which is true. But I think the more adult answer is that by then, because I had spent 2 years on meetings, I had done a good job, was a strong generalist PM, and on the basis of my reputation, was probably an interesting candidate for them to add to the AI team. So even though I don't really have much of an AI background, I think because of my generalist AI skills and also the fact that I knew how to navigate the org at that point, this was a useful mix of skills for what they wanted. I share that because if you're out there in the audience and you don't have an AI background and you're wondering how to get in, if you are good at your current job, you may have a similar opportunity to move into AI that way. So that's my
Fantastic
story.
advice. Thank you. Dylan, would you please tell us a little bit about your background and getting into AI?
Yeah, thank you so much. I love some of that sentiment of right place at right time, but at the end of the day, good work that is most important. I took the within product route as well. I've been a product manager at HubSpot, or was a product manager at HubSpot starting back in 2016, 2017. When I first was thinking about AI problems, these were well before where we are today. Working on storing and structuring customer data. And one of the really big problems in storing and structuring customer data is bad data. And so we had an AI ML teams at HubSpot at the time. And like most early AI products, we began with a simple heuristic, help customers identify duplicates, turn that into a model over time. And then, a love for AI began. So over the course of my career, that was back in 2016, 2017, AI became more of a staple in a lot of products that I worked on. I'm an eager learner, always, continuing to develop my understanding of AI through the regular product cycles. In 2022, I left HubSpot looking for a new challenge. Shortly thereafter, OpenAI launched ChatGPT, as we all know. You've heard 100 times this week. Kind of changed the world. And our co-founder Dharmesh was hacking on a thing called ChatSpot. And Dharmesh and I built a pretty strong prior relationship based on some other work I had done, and so before long, I found myself right back at HubSpot working on ChatSpot. So even as a product leader, I love staying close to these product problems and things our customers are looking to do. And ChatSpot was an opportunity to do that. So I ended up rejoining the team as a director/PM at the time, working on ChatSpot, rolling that into the stack, and now leading AI at HubSpot.
Oh, fantastic. That's awesome. Thanks for that. And Kumaresh, could you please give us a little bit about your background now that you're distinguished product manager at LinkedIn, heading up AI initiatives?
Sure. My journey was probably the farthest from Eileen and Dylan. I was a professional chess player, and I woke up to a headline that said AI beats human, the best human at a mental sport. And I woke up to seeing my childhood hero, Gary Kasparov, whose like posters I had on my wall, losing a game of chess. And I was like, okay, it's maybe time I switched to the winning side and started coding and became a machine learning engineer. And I remember sharing this with Gary when I got an opportunity, and his immediate reaction to that was, "I'm glad something good came out of that match." Uh, Subsequently, I think the switch from engineering to product was largely inspired by this observation that good technology doesn't always translate to great products.
Mhm.
And I wanted to be closer to like the function that made these products amazing, and hence product management.
Oh, I love that. Excellent. It's interesting. We have some folks who come from a technical background and some who don't. I had started in engineering, but similarly found moving to product was important. And when I did, that my tech skills were not the most important thing as a PM, for sure. They're useful, but it's not first and foremost what the job is about, right? Product management first. Fantastic. Thanks, so everyone for giving us that tip. And I am going to, I think I kind of shared my update of how I got into to product management from that engineering background. But having built predictive analytics, et cetera, at places like Amazon, I think the shift to generative AI is almost a bigger shift than kind of shifting from engineering to ML in some cases. And that it's unlocking these capabilities for folks who are less technical and able to get in. So I think it has that capacity to change our roles as well as the skill set needed more than anything we've seen before. So speaking of those competencies, let's dive into it. I think we'll dive into a little bit more too as we go. What is needed for technical skills along with the other skills that are needed. In my journey, I had kind of distilled what I saw the AI PM role evolving down into 6 core competencies. It really just follows the SDLC. When you're developing products, there's different stages. And for each stage, what is different for an AI product or AI PM versus traditional software or even data products? And so I'd love to dive into each of these one by one, and we'll talk a little bit about how you've seen these playing out at each of your organizations in terms of the skills that PMs have had to either bring or develop. And a key one, especially with such senior leaders as yourselves, is strategy and vision, right? So how will AI fundamentally change either the user experience or automate processes, or can it do stuff like provide, unattainable insights? But the key is delivering 10x value as opposed to starting with tech-led initiatives. So, Dylan, I'm actually going to ask all 3 of you to speak a little bit about this because it's of such interest at all of your organizations. Dylan, I was wondering if you could kick us off a little bit about how you've seen this play out at HubSpot.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. I'll start with I guess, a story. Is about 18 months ago, I read a memo internally that had a line that said, AI has the potential to be as disruptive as the internet. And I thought to myself, like, no chance. No way, right? Like the internet changed the way every person in the world lives their lives and their daily operations. Like it's really the definition of transformative. fast forward to today, I wholly believe that is true. I think understanding that and having that vision for the future is important, but also the adaptability to be able to do things like that, to have a belief, and when you're building AI products, allow that to be challenged so quickly, and not just a tiny belief, something as big as the impact of AI, is really important. So I really think AI will change the UX processes, insights, analytics in a few ways, and I'll talk about how that's been done at HubSpot. In terms of the user experience, at HubSpot we build SaaS. A lot of, I mean, all three of us do here, and I think we'll see a bunch of changes. If you really fast forward, you can imagine no longer ever building a generalized UI. That is something that all your customers need to learn, to onboard to understand. Today, when you start learning a new product, you're often greeted, or a customer starts learning a new product, they're often greeted with templates, with guidance, with, tell us about your problems and we'll fit you into one of these 4 or 5 clean buckets that we have manually defined that we think can solve your problems. But if you pull the time scale forward a little bit, you can imagine completely dynamic interfaces or no interface at all that is entirely personalized to an end user's needs. Not only their needs as spoken, the things that they think they need, but also as demonstrated. The things you're observing in their workflows, the things that you're detecting opportunities for, really what I would consider to be on the fly user experience. And I think we have not yet seen that develop. And I think we will start to see shades of that in the near future, in all the software that we use and build. Around processes, I really think AI is best positioned to make the hard things easy and let us focus on the enjoyable things we all do. So at HubSpot, when we wanted to start with our AI foray, we started with the things we do well and the things our customers love us for. They use HubSpot to publish their blogs, to write blogs, to build internet or site pages, to craft social posts. And while AI is helpful there, I think the real home run is actually in the surround sound work that people don't like doing. And there's a bit of like PM humility that is required in that. To say this product actually just solves the hard things and not the magical things. Like, yeah, AI is really good. Generative AI is really good at making a blog, really good at writing a social post. But customers like that. The things they don't like are writing meta descriptions, optimizing for SEO, or taking a blog and changing the content, localizing it, or posting it on 10 different social channels with different headline copy. Like, that is what we call toil work that I think we can really automate the processes around and streamline an end user's journey, and help them focus on the things they like to do. So that's the second piece. And then in terms of insights, like, I think you'll find AI solving today's problems faster than ever before, and we're on that horizon. We're seeing that happening. You can access deep troves of data. You can get that insight. But if you turn that clock forward, you will find AI solving problems that you didn't know you had, or identifying opportunities you didn't know existed. Sifting, sorting through troves of customer data, both structured and unstructured, helping you glean insights that you didn't know were there, whether it be uprisings in competitors, new market opportunities, new product opportunities, or things like that. I think we'll see a lot of that happening soon.
Fantastic. AI is part of building your strategy as in a strategy assistant.
Yes.
Fantastic. Kumaresh, I know you've got insights on this as well from your time at LinkedIn.
Yeah, LinkedIn's vision is to create economic opportunity for everyone in the global workforce, and we've always been pursuing a wide variety of value propositions that we offer our members. Now, with generative AI coming in, I think the main thing that we did, which is a very useful exercise, was we took all the jobs to be done that we've already had for over a decade as a company for everyday professionals, job seekers, hirers, marketers, and we intersected that with the superpowers that generative AI offers us, in particular, the ability to synthesize and reason across large and disparate sources of data. And oftentimes you end up having this intuition of, hey, for this job to be done, for this specific part of a member's journey in the product, maybe generative AI is going to be a massive unlock. But the thing that we realized was that our intuition can be quite off because it's quite easy to build these shiny 0 to 1 prototypes of what that experience could look like. But pretty soon we realized that the real value unlock only comes when we are able to try many different experiments with trying to bring these experiences to life. And as just one example of this coming to life, we've always tried to help members on LinkedIn connect with each other. And if you think about like staring at a blank screen wherein you're trying to draft a message to reconnect with a coworker of yours from 3 years ago, and you haven't stayed in touch. And like what we observe is oftentimes members just like close the message and choose not to send it, or they don't know where to start. They're just staring at a blank screen for a long period of time. And so how do we help them break the ice is something that we observed to be a major unlock when we started introducing generative AI capabilities in our messaging flows. This is just to give you an example of like how generative AI came into fruition in so many other parts of the app, and there are several that we haven't gotten like to be great just yet. But I think it's in this journey of trying to find this intersection of the right job to be done times the right superpowers of generative AI that you'll give yourself the highest odds of finding that unlock.
Yeah. And I think it's like some people think the skill is knowing that, where it's like really the skill is experimenting to find that right now, because we don't know yet, especially for your user base, for your problems. Eileen, I know you have some relevant examples from Zoom as well.
Yeah, I think to kind of emphasize a thread that's bubbling through our answers here, I think UI and UX is a critical part of AI strategy that people should think more about. I think there are so many discussions around the technology, but the actual core interaction of how will your user interact with your AI is something that everybody is starting to really grapple with right now. And you know what? It doesn't have to be a chatbot. I say this having worked on a chatbot, and I love chatbots for what they solve, but chatbots are actually a pretty tough interaction to design for, because your user can type anything. You have a cold start problem. You're unclear what the context is that your chatbot knows. So they solve good problems, but consider the alternatives out there. At Zoom, our main AI product is Meeting Summary. Meeting Summary is not a chatbot. You press a button to start it, and you get an automated report. So that's one common UI. In Zoom's whiteboard product, you can type a one-shot prompt in a text field to generate whiteboards. Mind maps. And then there are other interesting examples out there. I really like for Figma, the FigJam templates. They kind of do an interesting mix of preset prompts and also an open text field. So that's interesting out there. And then Canva has a magic switch feature that I also find super interesting, where it will take your image and resize it for different form factors, depending on what's your social media platform, and while keeping the key content within the frame. So I think there are all these interesting ways to deliver the power of LLMs to users. And we always talk about the hammer and the nail. So the whole art is, how do you find good nails and good design to present these solutions to the user?
For sure. UX is a big part of that as well. Excellent. Well, let's move on to the second core capability. I always like to put upfront that risk and responsible AI need to be assessed and thought about upfront and throughout a project, just because AI systems are inherently riskier, just because of non-deterministic behaviors, but also external factors like regulation and the impact of public perception. Eileen, I know you've worked with some really visible features, consumer visible features at Zoom. Do you have some anecdotes for thinking through the risks involved?
Yeah, so at Zoom, we think about responsible AI in a few different ways. First, we believe that we want to put the user in control. So Zoom, people think of Zoom as the thing we're staring at right now, but Zoom is sold to many large enterprises, financial services, healthcare, and so on. So when you sell to large enterprise, we do things like the AI features launch default off, so that your admin, your user, will only turn on things when they're ready. In addition to that, there are settings you can set up so that you can have a red teaming exercise where you have one small team in your company try out the AI features first, give feedback, iterate on it before you roll it out to your entire employee base. Beyond that, there are things like in the meeting, if AI is running, there's a little sparkle indicator to tell you that, hey, like AI is running. The way like there's recording in this meeting, there's a similar AI indicator to let people know when AI is processing their data. So we want to create this effect where the user is always in control of how AI is interacting with their content. Tied to that, Zoom, I think early on came out with a blanket policy that customer data will never be used to train our models or the third-party models we partner with. So I think this is an interesting one where I think you see more and more of the big companies moving in this direction. When Zoom came out with this, I think early last year, there was a debate around should you have people opt in, opt out, like what's the default? And then it became, I think we arrived at the conclusion that we want to say like your customer data will never be used to train models. Period, full stop. Don't even have to worry about it. The last point I want to think about for responsible AI is, do you want guardrails around the content that is generated? So everybody's familiar with how you can have hallucinations, but here's another aspect to think about. So I'm going to talk about a feature that has been announced but isn't launched yet. AI virtual backgrounds. So AI virtual backgrounds, if you think about it, it's an obvious one for Zoom to have. So AI virtual backgrounds, on the one hand, feels like a super fun, probably going to be very popular feature. But you have to be a little creative to imagine how your feature might be abused or how it might create offensive content. So this is what responsible AI actually means. Think about how people might abuse your feature. And so with AI virtual backgrounds, the challenge is what do you do when there are humans that might show up? If your user types the prompt Americans, what do you expect to see? If the user types the prompt racist, what do you expect to see? So there's no perfect solution to how you handle this in every single case, but there are things like, do you modify your user's prompt? Do you make an attempt to remove the humans or obfuscate them in some ways? So these are things that I think when you build AI features, these are part and parcel of thinking about what it means to handle AI in a responsible way.
100%. I think it's under-recognized. A lot of this is actually developing the policies and getting alignment from everyone on how we're going to handle these cases. I remember at one point when we were doing web scraping, I was asked if I could develop a list of all the the offensive sites on the internet. I was like, that's not how we're going to handle this. Yeah. We just won't use any bad sites. Let's go from there, right? So it's interesting to think that it's a lot more complex than people give it credence for sure. Data depth is another area you might be spending your time as an AI PM. As you were mentioning, Dylan, I know that you spend a lot of time combing through data. I think because AI runs on data, we all spend a lot more time digging through actual examples of worst case scenarios, examples of it working well than you might in a traditional project, just because you can't just look at a couple of answers. You have to look at potentially thousands to find outliers, et cetera. I know my time at Amazon, we'd had some interesting cases of always having to show, like, here's the worst case scenario. Is this good enough to go out? Even if this only happens less than 1% of the time, that we are confusing coronavirus and Ebola in our answers about a coronavirus and things like that. Those things were happening because our embeddings had been trained on news from a time when the Ebola was actually more prevalent in the news headlines than coronavirus. And I think it's an area where being able to dig in deep and understand like that level of data and the knock-on impacts is important to be able to actually like understand when things are going wrong in your systems. I do want to keep moving along just because we're a little behind schedule here. So let's move on. The next one is a doozy, right? So understanding how the model development, what are AI scientists doing during the model development, balancing the resources between the data science and engineering. It's a lot more stakeholders. It's been described as agile on steroids. And I think this is one where we had a story from Dylan, correct?
Yeah, I can chime in here with some thoughts. So, in terms of how to think about models, first step is to understand what your customers need. It's not very identical to how any other product is managed. Understand customer use cases, understand long-term vision for the product, and then understand where your moonshots lie. I heard a wonderful quote recently is that moonshots are a series of roof shots. And love that. It's like, how do we turn where we want to go in 10 years? How do we start cranking that dial today to ladder up to that 10-year vision? So once you've kind of understood that landscape, you get to the fun part of building. Using foundation models to start and then moving to homegrown use cases is a really nice pattern. You get to leverage a bunch of work that has been done. It may not be best in breed, it may not be bespoke, it may not be perfect for what your customers need, but you can start to get that validation and a deeper understanding of how to build something excellent by using a foundation model. And then from there, I saw a question around cost is like, try not to sweat the small stuff. Ideally, cost is included there. I know different companies operate under different constraints, but I wouldn't sweat too much on hallucinations, for example, from the get-go. Focus on the core problem. Those are optimizations you can make down the road. So once you've understood and built something, next comes monitoring. I think almost nobody is investing heavily enough in evals of AI performance right now. I think that is the kind of next trajectory and curve we see for really good products to have really deep understanding of performance, not only for the model they're using, but for dynamic interchanging of models and prompt engineering practices, continuous improvement of that, and then also helping to identify data gaps that exist between what you expect your customers to do and what they actually do. So quality eval suite can be useful there. And the final thing would be, improvements. So this is where your own models come into play. If a foundation model is maybe too big of a hammer, if it is too generic, if you need to, fine tune something to such a degree for such a specific task, this final cycle in model development feels like the right place to invest in bespoke internal models that solve a really specific customer problem.
Yeah, that's so true. I see so many organizations continuing to bring a bazooka to a knife fight a lot of the time in these where they're bringing LLMs to bear. But I think that's okay if you're trying to actually explore the possibilities and what's possible early stages. But when you get down to actually reducing costs and really reducing hallucinations for your use case, you'll often have to get bespoke. Fantastic. So speaking of evaluation, it's been very interesting over the past year and a half, 2 years, I've been teaching courses. And at first, all the questions were like, what should we build? And then they were like, how do we do it responsibly? And then it was like, oh, how good does the data need to be? Then how do I actually do it? Like model development. Today, I feel like a lot of questions for PMs are around evaluation and how do I go about thinking about like how good is good enough? And at Alexa, we definitely used like a constellation of metrics. There was no one like, hey, we're zero bugs or things like this are a thing of the past. Kumaresh, I know I'd love to hear some more about how that's played out at LinkedIn and how you guys think about evaluation.
Yeah, I would. Oftentimes PMs even ask me, hey, if your company doesn't have a culture of building AI products previously, you don't have the machinery, the processes involved with like setting up an evaluation pipeline, how do you even go about doing this? And I think even for companies like LinkedIn that have had like, a decade of building AI products, when there are new use cases that you come across and you're trying to apply Gen AI to, this is as much of like a cold start problem. I want to share an example of how we went about solving this for one of our like hardest use cases. It's the job assessment / matching problem. So given a member and a job that she or he is looking at, how do we help this member assess if they're a good fit for that job? Now, obviously, this is a task that is private to the member, and we take privacy very seriously. We also recognize that there are so many different kinds of job functions in various industries that we don't understand, in locations that we aren't quite like in a position to know if commuting is best done by car or by a train. And so how do you then like bootstrap an evaluation process for something like this? I'll share just what we did over a 48-hour window to get something like this going from 0 to 1. So it was pretty clear we needed a group of members that would give us consent for us to know what like their experiences are like when they're looking at a certain job, and for them to be able to chime in on, hey, when I'm looking at this set of jobs, is this a good fit for me or not? So we, as a team, we decided to reach out to something like 50 friends and family members in a wide variety of job functions. This included dancers, choreographers, criminal defense investigators, just even retired professionals who had come back to work. And we wanted to make sure we covered a truly wide spectrum, but at the same time, we crafted an NDA, which was a modification of our NDA to make sure that they were comfortable with exactly what we were going to do with their data. And most importantly, we made sure that they were a voice in our evaluation process. So we would oftentimes just take the 10 job recommendations that they get, have this AI system assess the fit for themselves. And we would send it to them and go, do you think this is a good assessment of the fit that this AI system thinks you are for this job? And through that process, what we realized was one, that having another person, a third person, such as an evaluator, do this is incredibly hard for deeply personalized experiences. And secondly, it became so much clearer that we needed to do this at a scale that is so much bigger than 50 friends and family members. But you can imagine that doing something like this quickly then allows you to identify the challenges that involve with an evaluation process of this kind, which then allows you to scale to tens of thousands of evaluations in a given week. And after that comes the constellation of metrics that you then identify on like how robust an evaluation task you've created. And I would go as far as to say that in this journey where like we go from 0 to 1 shiny new demos to like products that are truly scaling, I would argue that evaluation is the product in some ways. It defines the voice and tone and the direction that you're taking the product. So as a team, the amount of time that we spend here has only increased in the last year and a half.
So important. And I think human evaluation is still the gold standard. There's a lot of talk of LLMs as a judge and them doing the evaluation, but I know best practice is still to make sure that your LLM's results correlate, that helps you scale. Yeah. Regardless, getting the instructions for evaluators down to something that they can actually, grok and answer consistently for a good enough data quality, it remains an ongoing challenge. And this is one of the areas that a lot of companies are investing a lot in right now because it's what's needed. Fantastic. And finally, getting to launch. So getting to launch and beyond launch are the two areas I see people devoting like the least amount of curiosity to right now. And I feel like they're still in the evaluation stage. But I feel like it's coming. This is sort of the next biggie. It's like actually, okay, once we've actually met our launch criteria, the engineering involved to getting things launched, but then also understanding what happens after launch in an AI system with learning systems, et cetera. Eileen, I'd love to hear your take on Zoom and how they're handling this. I know you had been involved heavily too in the go-to-market strategies, for example, of how do we get this out there?
Yeah, there are a few different aspects to think about that apply to any feature, but stand out for AI. The first one is that as you think about launching, I think a customer beta period, user beta period becomes especially critical. I think you can start with what Kumaresh was talking about with evaluations, and you kind of keep growing that pool of testers. At some point, you have a full-blown customer beta. So I think you'll see more and more of that phase from development to GA being more of a spectrum rather than a hard cutoff transition. So do betas for Zoom. For many of our features, we will do a period of internal Zoomy testing where 7,000 employees are invited to test and beat it up as much as possible and give us feedback. And then for some of these features, we launched first to a premium tier of customers who were friendly and were willing to be early adopters and give feedback. I think this phase also lets you not just stress test and get feedback, because sometimes you really don't know how people will use your feature across all kinds of use cases. It also lets you do things like estimate costs more accurately, because you start to see patterns of usage that might become very useful information to you. Beyond the beta, think about your deployment strategy. For a company with Zoom's scale and reach, if you need to deploy internationally, then you have to think about multi-language issues, to think about how does data residency apply across the globe. GPUs may be hard to procure in some parts of the world right now. If you're going to launch to healthcare or education, then you have to think about HIPAA compliance. So these are all things that you should keep in mind as you deploy your AI feature. And then lastly, I think I want to call out sales enablement as something that's important to take into consideration. What does this mean? This means that when you really need to, as you prepare your customer success managers, your sales team, your marketing team to go talk about AI, you need to arm them with the AI narrative for your company because people have all kinds of questions. And then there is a huge bucket of privacy, compliance, security questions that they will be asked over and over again. And if you're writing an FAQ, make sure you have answers on those topics and a process for how to triage when customers ask very, very tricky questions. In the case of Zoom, my colleague, my teammates spent a lot of time working with our legal compliance and technical teams to develop a security white paper to make sure that we answer, say, 70–80% of the most common questions that come up. And it's not just launch and be done. It's also every few months, make sure you keep it up to date as we launch more features and as we hear more feedback from customers of how we can be more helpful in providing information to them to help get AI features deployed in their orgs.
Oh, fantastic. Thanks, Eileen. I think it's so key across all of these different competencies. What I've heard over and over again is, yes, a certain degree of technical fluency is necessary, but you can see how across the board, none of these are developing systems, deeply understanding, haggling about system development, options, et cetera, right? And I think too many people think they have to go super, super deep on the tech side when the breadth of what PMs have on their plate goes so far beyond that. So thanks for highlighting that. Awesome. Well, with our remaining time, I did want to touch on a key topic. I just wanted to take, say, 2 minutes each and just talk about when you're recruiting for PMs on your team, or who has been the best PMs for AI projects in your experience? Dylan, would you like to kick us off?
Sure. Thank you. I really I don't think this answer is much different for AI PMs than other PMs. I maybe said that a few times here. But I look for somebody who's entrepreneurial, who has a learning first mindset, who can put the customer needs first and foremost and their personal needs and take a back seat, and really just value iteration, value understanding the landscape, competitors, and customer problems above everything else. Somebody who's adaptable and can approach every day with an open mind and a tenacious focus around the work is still the thing. It has been and will continue to be. So
fantastic. Is there anything different, any way people can differentiate themselves with AI on their resumes, or does that not matter?
Build things. It's easier than ever for a PM and even a non-technical PM to build something. Heck, build a custom GPT using nothing but natural language and get 1,000 users on it. Like that is easier than ever before. Prove you can lead go to market. Prove you can figure out distribution. Prove you can find the right scope and customer problem. That is all more doable than it ever has been before. And so proof is in the work. And if you can demonstrate that and bring that to the table in creative ways and compelling ways and show the way that you've iterated and solve somebody's real problems, that's the home run.
Fantastic. Kumaresh, could you let us know what your thoughts on this?
I think what Dylan shared resonates a lot. I will add that in particular, the ability for a PM to translate a set of user or customer needs into a set of metrics that you can rely on and constantly iterate on over a period of time, wherein the evaluation process, the metrics that you use, they are also evolving with the product itself, the experience that you create. That being something that a PM has demonstrated comfort with is something I look for, wherein I ask them, hey, explain to me a part of your like a product that you have built, how exactly did you work with your data science and eng partners to define this? And how did it change from the first time it was defined to what it was eventually? And I think, especially in a world where the pace at which models are evolving, new capabilities are emerging, and you have like a plethora of options for where you can take your product. A PM that can ground an entire team on like the direction that they're headed through like robust definitions of what these metrics and evaluations should be is something that I look for. And as for someone breaking into AI from other fields, as Dylan mentioned, I think like building is by far and away the biggest superpower that like demonstrates your both your passion for the space as well as your ability in some ways. But I'll caveat this by saying you don't have to be like a former engineer who has built stuff. Like it can just be a demonstration of a real human need that you are able to solve uniquely through a creative solution that doesn't exist out there, or a demonstration through your day job of how you've persisted with a hard problem over a period of time and found creative ways to solving it, which to me counts as like a meaningful way to differentiate yourself.
Fantastic. Yeah, it looks like it's like the capacity to learn to do it is dependent on your tenacity and your willingness to experiment. Eileen, I'd love to hear your thoughts on this too.
Yeah, I think when I have interviewed candidates, I find that I actually ask the same questions that I would ask for a non-AI PM role. And the difference is that when people answer a question, so let's say you're talking about metrics, then you might talk about evaluation and quality and the challenges there. So if you happen to have AI experience, then you answer in those directions. So the questions might be the same, but you speak to your experience differently. I think the tricky question is like, if you don't have AI experience officially, what do you do? I'm +1 to Dylan's suggestion that go build something, even if it's small, even if you only get to 100 users, just go build something so that you can speak to a bunch of things out there. And then beyond that, I think this came up in a different panel discussion that I really like this idea. Like if you work for a company that is just dabbling in AI, then find a way to raise your hand and volunteer to go take on those projects and help lead some kind of AI effort within your company. I think we're still early enough in the field that you can kind of do what I did and attempt to make a lateral transfer into AI in many companies. Kumaresh might beat you to the job, but if Kumaresh is not there, then you know the rest of you still have a shot at it. The rest of us have a shot at it. So I think there's still ways to, and you can hear from all our answers that ultimately, if you have good fundamental PM skills, then it's easier to add the AI onto it. I was recently speaking to an engineering manager who asked me, how do you hire an AI PM? And it turned out that he had an AI PM for his team, but he was not happy with this person. And I said, why is this person not good? Like, it's not because of their lack of AI skills, right? He's like, yeah, it's not that. So I thought that was kind of a good indicator that it's a tricky question because like to get hired, we on the hiring side, you want to see some kind of AI interest, exposure, experience on your resume. So you need to prove that somehow, but it doesn't necessarily have to be in an AI job per se.
100%. And I think that's so key. I see a lot of folks too who are trying to take more technical courses and might go out and like build and tune a classifier. That's great, but will you actually be able to talk through all of these examples you've given of like what was the user problem, all of the actual like PM skills of talking through how you would evaluate it? You don't get that necessarily from focusing on the technical side of it. And it's going out and doing it. Imagine that. It's the real thing. Well, fantastic. Just to close this out, I'd love to hear 1 to 3 years from now, what do you think is going to be the one thing that'll be different about the AI PM role? We have about 6 minutes left. So, Dylan, want to kick us off?
Yeah, sure. In my prep work, I thought the prompt was to keep this to one sentence, and I used a gigantic run-on sentence. I'm very happy that has been removed from the slide, and now I can add periods in here. So I think it will be more about being your customer than ever before and embodying a customer problem. I think a PM 1 to 3 years from now will need to do more early validation of solutions before engineering or design, more proof, more trial and error on their own. I think the majority of administrative cruft is going to be removed. It's going to be replaced with the need of understanding your customer more than ever before. And that includes not only when they're using your product, but also when they aren't. Like, what is the surround sound of a customer environment, and what are their needs outside of your interface that you can think about? So I think it's really what we've all joined this career or chose this career path for, is solving deep customer problems. I think we're going to see so many wins in just the PM operations that take some of the management out of our work and bring us even closer to the customer. So I'm
More of the
really,
good stuff.
really excited for that.
Fantastic. Kumaresh.
I think over the next 2 to 3 years, there's going to be a lot of specialization that's going to happen even in the AI PM role. So today we use this blanket sort of, hey, you're an AI PM or you're not. And I think as with how the traditional product management role had this concept of, hey, you're either a builder or like an optimizer, like someone that can take something from 0 to 1 versus like optimizing it for a long period of time, or you're a platform PM, that sort of thing. I think on the AI PM side, this will come down to something along the lines of you have such depth in like model evaluation as one area, model orchestration as another area, wherein you know how you can experiment with many different models and how you can have these models work with each other to solve an underlying need. And I also think there's going to be an emerging class of like AI platform PMs that are about helping either like vertical product teams within your large company go pursue their dreams, or in some cases offering up the middleware, if you will, for all things generative AI, where you're building tools for other developers to come build on top of the platforms you build.
Yeah, specialization within that ecosystem for sure.
Yes.
Excellent.
One other thing I'll just add here is I think identifying something that you do today and like which of these PMs are you will help you then be able to like prepare yourself to be the specialized version of an AI PM that will emerge in the next 3 years.
Oh, fantastic. That's great. And we've got some follow-up materials to help people kind of decode that on their own. Fantastic. Thanks for that. Eileen, how about you? Let's finish us off.
Yeah, so I misread the prep questions. So this is worse than what Dylan did. So I thought it was a little bit more about what will change, how will AI change the PM role. So I'm kind of coming into a slightly different angle. And then what I was thinking about was that AI will help you first draft everything. Was how I was thinking about it. So whether it's your Jiras or your PRDs or your roadmaps, and even mock or prototype your features in some way, I think it'll be interesting to see AI do more and more of that. And so that changes how you function as an AI PM. If your skill is about how to harness these tools in different ways, and then what's left for you to do. So I think the PM skills PM skill set will continue to sit on curation. You will still need originality, taste, judgment that doesn't go away. So I think those parts are critical. And then the one thing I was thinking about of like what I would love for AI to help us as PMs, I would love a feature that tells me when will my feature really ship. I would love that one, right? It sucks in who's on your team, which engineers you have, which PMs you have, and then how complicated is this thing? How many executives have to approve your feature before it ships, and then it helps you estimate when will it really ship. Yeah.
Let's hope for that soon. Excellent. What an optimistic note to end on. I would love to know within a confidence interval. Fantastic. Well, thanks so much, everyone. That's our time for today. But Dylan, Kumaresh, Eileen, thanks so much for joining us. It was really, really insightful. And I know we gained a lot from your chat today. Thanks again.
This is awesome. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you all.